Okay, so I am back. I guess I'm gonna be working on this a little bit every day. It is, what time is it? It's 8:38. Sweet. So where did I leave off yesterday? Wow, my live session actually stayed up. Usually it dies if the computer goes to sleep. Okay, so where was I? I had generated, so I had generated a deck of cards. Okay, so I have hearts. I have, let's see, this is 0 through, that's interesting, so it's 13 cards. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, that's right, okay. So it's 13 cards in each suit then, okay. I've been counting that as 14. So it's 10. Oh, right, because there's only 8 between this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's only 9 there. Okay. So that's why I've been calling it 14. Okay. So I have diamonds, clubs, spades, and hearts. I don't need jokers for solitaire. I don't believe. If I do, then I have to do that later. Okay, but if I'm not mistaken, when I stopped last time, what I was thinking was, then the next thing that's going to be necessary is to shuffle these cards. So far, I created, okay, this is creating my deck. I've defined the card object. This creates my deck, and then this is a internal function here that generates the cards. Okay, so I can get rid of this. This is just me testing out the card class. I can get rid of that. Okay, so we need a function that can shuffle our cards. So we've created the deck. I'm wondering, would it be, I was thinking of, should I make a deck object that holds the cards, which it's not really necessary. Maybe at some point, so that you could vary, via the constructor, you could vary the number of cards in the deck, but that's not really necessary. So, alright, so there's create deck. Let's come down below that. And let's make a function. Let's call it shuffle deck. I like to just put the word like deck in there, since that's what it's going to be dealing with. Alright, how will we do this? This seems like it. I don't know anything about algorithms and stuff, so I have a vague kind of knowledge of that type of stuff and what they are, but not really how to implement them. I guess I could look it up, but I don't really know. So I'm just gonna try this kind of rough, naive approach here. The first thing I think about is like, I got my deck of cards here. I think about, if I take these cards, usually I see people do something like this, and like split the cards into 2 stacks, and then do, this sort of thing where they, intermesh them like that, and then, slide the deck into itself. thereby mixing up the cards. And so I'm kind of thinking of something like that. How would I do that? What comes to mind first, let's see. I'm just gonna make a temporary. I'm just gonna do some like some kind of sketch pad stuff here. I'm gonna say our temp array is a new empty array. Let's say new array. So it'll be 52. Okay. Just make an empty array that can hold. I'm gonna try to do this as simply as possible. See, make an empty array that can hold all of my cards. And then I'm going to take the actual deck. What is it called? It is called cards. Okay, it's called cards. So I'm gonna take cards. I'm just gonna take cards. I'm gonna say what I'm thinking right now is to just take create a random number between 0 and 52, and just take from cards and just randomly move through cards. So I'm going to try to use the for each. For, how do I do that? For C in cards. I think this is right. I haven't done this in a long time. For C in cards, for each item for each card in the card deck, I want to well, I'm already seeing how I need an iterator, which, you know, I can get an iterator in this because I can get keys or something. There's some way to do that, but because I'm sketching, it's slowing me down trying to figure it out. I could W3 schools, go to good W3 schools, but I don't feel like it. I'm gonna create an iterator. I equals 0. I less than 52. Increment I. And what I want to do is I do need to figure out how to create a random number. I'm just going to type it in, see if the autocomplete math.random. Okay. Returns a floating point pseudo-random number in the range 0, 1. That is from 0. Okay. How do I create a random number? Math.random. So I'll have to multiply it by something. I'll need to make a, let's see, I can say math. I need the number to be between 0 and 52. So how do I do that? Let me go to W3 and see an example. Random, and then you can multiply by 10 or whatever. My math is not strong, and so, okay, multiply by 10 gets me from 0 to 9. So the number will be a, okay, for this is create a proper random function to use for all random integer purposes between min and max. So it will be times max minus min. So this is basically returning a rounded down random number multiplied times, let's say it's 52 minus 0 plus 1 plus 0. Okay. Always returns a random number between min and max, both, so it's inclusive. I need to feel this out myself. Let me do something here. I want to do this. I'm not going to call shuffle decks on it. I can leave that the way it is. Rather than logging cards, I'm going to log math.random. Let's do that. Okay. So if I were to multiply that by 10, that would have given me 8. So if I do this, math.random times 10, I just need to make sure I understand it. Okay, that gives me 9.9. Okay. And then if I round it, math.floor returns the largest integer less than or equal to a number. So that's going to round it down. Okay. Let's refresh. That gave me 0. Refresh. That gave me 9, 2, 3, 8, 5, 1, 3, 4, 5, 4, 2, 0. Okay, cool. So it gives me a random number between 1 and 10. Let's say I did 52. 24, 18, 26, 19, 14, 46, 23, 15, 17, 1. Alright, so it's random, which is cool. Okay. So that's how I can get a random number. A problem that I can see is that, one, if I get the same number more than once, that could create a problem. If I get the same number more than once, that could create a problem. Also, if I never get certain values, that could be a problem. But we can have, contingencies for that. We can create workarounds for that. Okay, so I'm just gonna roughly implement that. So I want to say each time around I want to generate a random number. I should probably do that thing that they said. I'm going to create a function, generates, I'm going to call it get location. No. Generate random. And that's going to be math. Let's say return math dot random times 52, and then I want it to be inclusive. I want it to include 0 and what did they do here? max minus min plus 1 plus min. So that would be basically just say 53, because it's not inclusive, if I'm not mistaken. It's not normally inclusive. Yeah, it's exclusive. Between 0 and 1, exclusive. And so that gives us from 0 to 9. Okay, what about the 0? How does this work? Random times, so this would be 52 minus 0 plus 1, which would be 53. And then it adds 0, which does nothing, so that would be the same as 53. So, alright. 0 inclusive, 1 exclusive. Okay, so this is what I want. So I can just cleanly say, temp, I'm just going to place a card, temp array, at the index of generate random, equals cards at the index of I. So it's going to go through the card deck and pick a card one at a time, going from top to bottom, and randomly insert that card at a certain location. The obvious deficiency of this is that it's not going to get every single, it's not going to fill every single position in the temporary array. Yeah, it's not gonna fill every position in the temporary array. It's just not, because it's random. As the last thing I'm gonna do console.log. After that runs, I'm gonna log the temp array and just see what I end up with. There are probably gonna be a lot of empty spots in there. It won't run outside of the array bounds, because cards is only 52. The generate random is bounded. And then the temp array is only 52 as well, so it won't run outside that. Shouldn't. So I'm gonna save that and let's run it and see what we get. Let's see what's in it. What am I printing? What did I print? It logged cards. Let's comment this out. Oh, I never called it. That's correct. Create deck and then shuffle deck. Refresh. Refresh. So when it gets called, what does it do? It creates temp array. Oh, what did I do? What is that? That is not a valid call. I'm surprised I didn't get some sort of error. I don't know what that even means. Maybe log is. Did I just find out something about JavaScript? Alright, let's see. Adios. Oh, I'm still returning non-integer values, so I need to do this math dot for. I'm gonna round down. I don't know if that'll have consequences. That's weird. Does it even allow you to do that? That's weird. So you can have, wow. Alright, let's refresh. Okay. So I ended up, okay, well, this is weird. It did fill each location. Why? Why did it fill each location? Oh, okay. I see what's going on. Some of these are going to be duplicates probably. Let's test that theory. Diamonds. I should have 4 aces. 1, 2, 3. I only have 3 aces. Yeah. So, weirdly, it did fill every space. I'm trying to think how that could possibly... No, it didn't fill every space. 0, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 is empty. 16, 17, 18, 19 through 21 is empty. Okay, so it didn't fill every space. I'm seeing the empty spaces in there. Okay, so some got missed, and they overwrote spaces as we thought. It just looked weird there for a second. It's like, whoa, I didn't expect to see that many actually get filled. But I guess there's a lot of cards, so it filled up enough. All right, so now we deal with that issue. If there's something already there, we can do this just, roughly, and have it check. We can say, we can do this. We can generate, we can say, var slot. Let me declare this outside so it's not declaring it every time. I can just say var slot equals 0. So I know it's going to be a number. Doesn't care, I don't guess. We can say slot equals generate random. And then we can do a check. We can say if temp array at the index of slot how can we say, I guess we could say null is not null. It's not equal to null. Then we want to do this and replace that with slot. Otherwise, we want to say, what do we want to do? Otherwise, if it is, we need to check. We're going to increment. We're going to increment. We're going to look at the next space and see if it's got something there. And if it doesn't, then we're going to place it there. But what we need to do, I'm thinking of splitting this check off into another function. simply because I know I'm going to probably need to rearrange because all these functions within functions, it may be okay, and because JavaScript allows me to do that, I'm going with it. But it feels like this needs to be spun off into some, because I'm adding functionality in this way, it feels like I need to spin it off into, because these are basically methods, I need to spin it off into an object or something, the shuffler. But I mean, a function is an object in JavaScript, I don't know. Alright, function, I'm going to call this check slot. And I'm going to have it take, it has access to slot already. Yeah, it has access to slot. At that instant in time, it'll be what it is inside of the for. So check slot, and I'm going to have it do this. Yeah. I'm going to have it do that. And then if it returns true, wait, I want that to be if that slot is empty, if it's equal to null. Okay, if that's equal to null, then I want it to return true. Else, okay, how can I do this? I want to make this where I can do all of this inside of here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have this return slot. Okay, and then what I'm going to do in this one is, if it wasn't null, meaning it wasn't empty, and I still need to check and see if that's how you can check if a spot in an array is empty. If it wasn't null, I wanted to do some further checks. I wanted to I'm going to say else if I'm going to do an else if slot is less than 51. Okay. If slot is less than 51, this is going up to 52. I need to take that up to 51 only because it's zero base. Okay. If slot is less than 51 and slot is greater than 0, let's see, if slot is less than 51 and greater than or equal to 0, do I need to check that? It should never be 0 anyway. It should never be less than 0 anyway, so it doesn't matter. If slot is less than 51, then I want to increment. I want to say inside this I'm going to check if temp array at the index of slot. We do know that that spot was wrong, so I'm going to go ahead and increment slot. If temp array at the index of slot is null, I need this to repeat. I need this to repeat. So what I need to do is this, I'm going to make this an else. I'm just going to make this an else. And then I'm going to come in here, I'm going to say for. No, I'm going to say while. I'm going to declare a variable here. Alright, it's getting weird, but let's roll with it. Var control equals false while control if slot so less than 51, then I'm going to do slot plus plus. Okay. Alright, if we just found an empty spot, could I use the slot less than 51? Okay, no, because I can do this. If that's null, then I could say control equals true. That'll kill this, and I'll then drop into here and return slot and whatever slot was. That way I can use this function to set slot. I'll probably need to rename it. If slot is less than 51, if it's not, else. Now this is going to waste some time. This is going to waste some iterations though, because if I increment forward, let's say I'm at 49, I increment 50, it's full. Increment 51 and it's full. What I'm about to do now is I'm going to start incrementing backwards. And so this is going to still increment back through and do those checks anyway. But just to get something working, because I can make that better. Slot minus minus if. I'm going to do the same thing. Temporary slot null. Control becomes true, and I pop out and return slot. But how do I need to make sure that I don't go past 0. I shouldn't go past 0 anyway, because I'm only dealing with 52 cards. And so if I were at, let's say, wait a minute, I'm only going to get to this condition. No, the logic is messed up here. Slot less than 51, else. Well, that's the case if I get to 52, in which case I don't want to get to 52. So if I get to 51, if I'm at 51, I wouldn't get it. It wouldn't go in here. If it's less than 51, so that'll stop it at 50. If it's less than 51, so if I'm at 51, then it would go here. But then it would immediately go back to here. It would get stuck. Okay. Okay. Let's do this. This is getting wonky. I need to redesign this. And I'm going to create a variable. Let's say in round trip. is false. I'm going to do this. I'm going to say round trip. This is like, I don't know, this feels like defensive coding or something. I'm just solving little problems that I'm creating for myself as I go along. What I'm going to do is if I ever make it here, then I'm going to set this. I'm going to set round trip is true. So if it ever makes it here, meaning that we went over 51, then it's going to set this. That just trips that and makes it never come back in here again. Then we decrement until we find an empty slot, and once we do, we'll return slot. That's weird, but it might work. We'll see. Alright, so what I'm going to do here, I'm shuffling the deck, and slot becomes generate random. Temp array at the index of, I'm going to say now check slot. And then that'll set it wherever it can go. Let's check the logic here in all of its weirdness. Let's see. So I call this, create the temp array, initialize slot, go in a loop, get a random value between, I need to set this to 52 because it's 0 base. Okay, get a random number. At the index of slot, now I'm going to check slot. I come in here, initialize a couple variables. I check if the current location with the selected slot is empty. If it is, I just return that value and we're good. If it's not, I go into a while loop. Control needs to be true. Control needs to be true to start. Okay. I go into a while loop. If the currently selected slot is less than the end, if we're not at the end yet, and round trip is false. Let me change the language right here. And we haven't been on a round trip. I just like how that feels. Then when I increment slot, and then I want to check if that location is null or not. If it is, then I set control to false. And then when it comes back around, control is false, and we just return slot. If it wasn't, we come back around. And let's say we are at the end. Let's say we're at 51. We then come down here, we flip the round trip flag, which means that we've touched 51 before. And we start decrementing. We decrement slot, which means we're going to go back through spaces that we've already covered, but whatever, for right now. We then are going to check if temp array at the index of the new slot that we just decremented to is empty. If it is, we'll kill the loop and return slot. So that'll work us all the way back. What happens if we get to 0? If we're at 1 and we decrement and we hit 0, and it's null, and it's not null. Okay, this could waste a lot of time, but it could never go outside of bounds because we're working with a limited amount of spaces. So we're going to search the whole thing. So it's basically like kind of not to glorify it by using an actual technical term, but it's kind of an exhaustive search. It'll go through every index. There are only 52 cards. There are only 52 slots. It will find an empty slot. So it shouldn't go outside of the array bounds. Alright, let's try that. Now, how do we use this shuffle deck situation? What does shuffle deck itself return? It doesn't return anything right now. Okay, so what I need to do, once this goes through this, I need to, I'm just going to log the temp array right now. Okay, we already call it. I'm nervous now for some reason. We already call it, and so let's save that and let's see what happens. Alright, 52, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 33, 34, 35. Wow, okay. I should have 4 aces. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 queens. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 jacks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 kings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it worked. Okay. We do have 52 cards, and they are as random as you might hope. If I refresh it, there's some bunching of some of the let's see if that's typical. Let's see. No, it's spread pretty. I mean, there's going to be bunching in a real stack of cards. I'm noticing some bunching of some I don't know what you call those. I call them face cards. I don't know what that even means. If that's what it means, what I think it is. There's some, because I know random numbers are not. That's cool though. I mean, that works. Sweet. Now, something I want to check just for the fun of it. I want to see how many times this thing actually runs. How inefficient is it? Like, how many cycles am I wasting? How many times is it having to go all the way to the end and then work its way back? I mean, I don't care because I'm a bad person, but I'm just going to make a variable and say counter equals 0. I'm going to go, let's see, every time this goes around, like through the whole run of the shuffle, how could I do that? Let's say every time, let's see how many times this section runs, how many times it gets down here. I'm going to say counter plus plus. How many times does it get to the end and go back? Let's just see. And then I'm going to how can I do this? I'm going to put this outside. Shuffle deck only gets called once, so I'm going to put this up here. And then I'm going to, at the end, I'm going to log counter. Let's see, how many times does it actually happen? 45. So it's not terrible. So it decremented 45 times on that one. Is that terrible? That is terrible. Oh, 45 times over the whole thing. I don't know if that's terrible or not. Let's see. Yeah, it's terrible. So it had to decrement 94 times that time. It didn't decrement at all this time. Let's see what this... Wow. Wow. And that's random. And that's random. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I don't know why I have doubts that like all of my spaces got filled. I mean, that's it. There's no empties up here. Wow. So wow, 150 times. 200 times. So 0 times is not typical. 300 times. Wow. So it's either really, really inefficient. There's another 0. What does that one look like? So it all depends on how the random number generator is doing, which that's fine. I mean, that's terrible in terms of efficiency or whatnot, and I can see some ways that we could fix it. One way that we could fix it is we could keep okay, that's cool. I keep saying let's and we as though there's someone else here. There it is. There's me, myself, and I. So since I did that and I've seen that it can be really inefficient, it makes me think of something I saw like in a algorithms book one time, something about memoization or whatever, which I know this is not what this is, but it just makes me think about it. One thing that I thought of when we were doing it is I could just keep track of what the original slot was. And so if we go to 51, we just jump back to there and start decrementing from there. So when check slot gets called, I could just say var origin. I love that. That was organic. I was going to say original slot, but I'm proud of myself for that. That sounds pro, even though it's meaningless. Origin is origin equals slot. I could do that. What hit me there for a second was slot is going to be changing, but it doesn't matter. Origin equals slot. The origin equals the value of slot at that instance. At that instant in time. What I'm going to do is, when we get down here, the first time we come in here, okay, how can I do this? Because this is going to have to be like a this is going to have to be like a one-time thing. I want to set slot to its original value. Round trip becomes useful here because round trip is going to become true here. Okay, so what I can do is I can take advantage of round trip's existence and say if, as the first thing here, round trip, if not round trip, when we first come in here, if round trip is false, meaning it's our first time in here, I want to say slot equals origin. And then I'm going to set round trip to true. That also stops us from just arbitrarily doing that every time. Just like setting round trip to true. That bothered me, but so the first time it comes in here, it's going to set slot to origin. This, see, this is fun. It's fun when it's working. This could, when it's not working well, then it's not fun. But because of round trip here, this is false hereafter. After that happens one time, that's false because of that. And so we start decrementing from there. So what has happened in this case is that we've gone forward, we've incremented forward up to the end from the original slot, and we didn't find an empty slot. So we're going to go back and start from there, from the original slot, and go the other direction, where the empty slot must be, which, you know, this is a small, what we're going to find out is how much of that extra, you know, in here, how much of that extra iteration was happening because of having to go forward and not find an empty slot. And, you know, we'll cut out the portion of it that was caused by going back. So we're going to find out how much of it was caused by that, because that's all this is cutting out. Let's see. It only did it twice that time. 31 times. 136 times. 161. 9. 122. 68. 89. 80. 131. 178. We're not getting up to, you know, 300 and whatnot. Oh boy. Seems better. 224. Which, this is also counter is getting incremented every time we have to go backwards. So it's basically to say we went backwards. We reached the end and had to go backwards 243 times as we were sorting 52 cards. So it didn't really cut off a whole lot. I mean, some of those numbers were in the 300 range before. So the it seems to have helped some. Seems to have helped some. And if you take, you know, 169, let's take one of those big numbers. Let's see the next 200 we get. Let's take one of those big numbers and divide it by, say, you know, 52. 177. It's kind of fewer and farther in between those huge numbers, it seems like. Let's say 168. What's 168 divided by 52? You know, like, you know, 4, 3, 4, you know. So, you're averaging about 3 backwards checks each time, which is, you know, the same for you know, 300 or whatever. Let me walk through that logic and make sure that it's working the way I think it is. Origin equals slot. At the instance that this gets called, yeah, slot minus. So yeah, it should have cut out some of that. Okay, cool. There are some other things I guess I could do, but for all intents, we have a shuffled deck of cards now. So now I actually need to start learning how to I actually need to start learning how to play solitaire. So this up here at the top, the hello message, probably needs to go away. This is supposed to be kind of non-graphical, so we're just going to be representing data. So I need to come up with a way to represent our card deck and everything. How can I do that? What I'm going to do, I'll make a game board just out of, let's say I'm going to make a div ID, I'm just going to call it board, call it play area. And then inside it, I'm going to place several other divs, which would be one, I guess, could be what? One could be the what do you call them? There's like the stockpile of cards. I'm just gonna say pile. Let's put some labels in there so we know what they are. Say H1 gives a class of title. Give a class of a label. I'm gonna say this is the play area, and then this, I'm just gonna call it the label, and then I'm just gonna call it the pile. Alright, so I'm gonna give both of the divisions a class. I'm gonna say so give it a container. So I'm gonna put a border on both of them. Container. Alright, let's come up and style these fellows. So a container will have border. You style a border. 1 pixel solid black, and then what else do I want to do to it? I'm gonna give it some padding to just move everything in. Padding 20 pixels. Alright, then for the actual areas themselves, I'm gonna make the play area centered, like in the page. What did I call it? Play area. I'm gonna offset it from the page. I'm gonna make it 80% of the page, and then margin 0 auto to put it in the middle. What can I say? I don't know any of the new stuff like border box and all of that stuff. That would probably make this easier. The pile. Is that the name of it? Yeah, the pile. I'm going to make it width. I'm gonna make it a fixed width. I'm just gonna make it 80 pixels. And then I'm gonna make it position relative. I want to position it relative to its parent, which I think I can do by saying top 0 pixels. Does that work? No. Top 100 pixels. That offsets it from the top. How do I do that? Top, what, 0%? 20%. I'm offsetting it from the top by 20%, so I want to say negative 20%. Does that work? Negative 50. Negative 80. I just want to put it up at the top. I don't know. Whatever. And then this I can do. Do I even need this, the position relative? Because I'm not, I think it's like it's nearest positioned. Thought it was relative to, I guess it's relative to its position in the flow of the page. Because right now, alright, forget this, I don't like that. I'm gonna center the this. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. I'm just gonna center this. I'm gonna say text align center. Just put that there. I'm gonna say background color green. Yeah, that looks like some sort of game board. Dark green. Whatever. My pile, I'm gonna make its background color what? Background color what? Red? I don't know. I don't know how to represent a pile of cards. Let's make this one green and then make this one dark green. Yeah. Alright, so what that'll then let me do is that gives me something to play around with here. Which is, this feels graphical. It's not going to be animated, I don't guess. It's just giving me a place to put my data. That gives me something to play around with here. When the pile gets shuffled, when the deck gets shuffled, I can give some sort of indication in the pile. And just, I don't know how to represent cards, that cards are there. I don't know. I could put a star there or something. I don't know. It's just giving me some place to represent changes or whatnot that are happening. So the next time I come back here, I'm gonna have to think about this. Actually, how to represent the data. I think I may need to figure out how to use tables or whatever. Because solitaire, what does solitaire look like? What does solitaire look like? I know that there are like stacks of cards or whatever. Yeah. stockpile and whatever. I need to figure out a way to represent these different things like in data. I guess I could create a table or something that says what cards are here. The thing is, I really don't know how to play solitaire yet, so I have to figure that out. But I'm gonna look in HTML. I've seen that like in old school stuff, that they designed whole web pages with tables and what have you, because positioning and whatnot was weird. So I guess I could put borders on that or whatnot. So yeah, I could do something like, I could make a table and say pile, and then state what the top card is on the pile, because I think that's how it works. The top card is like flipped over or something like that. So I could say this is the pile, and then this is the top card on the pile. So I could say pile, and then list what the top card is underneath that. And then each of the stacks could be like foundation, one of the terms that we're using, a foundation or whatever. It could be like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then state what cards are there or whatever. So maybe I could do that. Okay, so we have a shuffled deck of cards, and we're gonna try to go from there next time. So I'm gonna try to work on it like longer tomorrow. I'm trying to keep these videos like in an hour or whatever. It's not like anybody will watch them or whatnot, but just because that keeps the upload size manageable. So I will be back at it tomorrow. I feel like I should say peace.